All right, bam. Joseph,
Yes, hi.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So excited that we get to finally do this after a few revisions to
Yes, yes.
your schedule.
Sorry about that. Ya itu tiba-tiba mendadak semua. No, it's fine, right?
English, actually.
Oh, English. Okay, okay. Yeah, sorry. There's a couple of unexpected schedules with work. So, but thank you for accommodating. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to have you here, and I've heard interesting story from you, and I've read somewhere that you are doing a lot of things in the tech space, and even in fashion. Even we're going to that a little bit later.
Sure. Yeah.
But one thing that really strikes me is your food venture,
Mm.
the food directory venture. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So after I graduated from university, I work a bit in Singapore, right? And then afterwards, I decided to come back to Indonesia for to build my own startup, right? And the idea that I had last time was that I wanted to build a food directory similar to Yelp in the U.S. But then, you know, not long after that, we kind of pivot a bit, uh, so that we not only become a food directory platform, but then it became like a restaurant reservation platform as well, right? So then that's where we pivot. So then back then we had two products basically. One product that is customer facing. That's for the end users, right? For them to review and then for them to make reservations, and then the backside, which is a reservation management system for the restaurant, right? So yeah, so that's a startup that I did back when I was still so young.
What was it called? Oh, sorry, you need to speak around
Okay.
one
What?
fist
Okay,
length.
like this?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
cool.
Yeah.
So it was called Live Epically, right?
Live epically.
Live epically, right?
Sounds epic.
So then the idea was that we wanted users to have an epic life, I guess, where they can not only reserve the restaurants, but then there's other add-ons as well, right? So for example, you want to go on a date, and back then I didn't know where to buy flowers from, right? So then you can buy flowers.
You can buy flowers in Live epically.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very
Um,
diversified. Very diversified.
Right. Yeah. So it's basically just additional services back then to try to live up to the name, right? To make your life epic. So
Nice.
you can reserve. For example, if you want to reserve, not reserve, rent a car, for example, right?
You can rent a car in Live
Right,
epically.
right. So those are the add-ons basically that you can try to do. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And sorry, your voice sound okay, but still need to be a little
Okay.
bit low.
Like this. Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll move it forward. Okay.
just tiny bit closer,
Okay.
and just like that.
Okay. Here.
I'm gonna adjust it. I'm gonna
Sure.
adjust it. I don't want the viewers to miss out on the jewels you're saying.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir. Just like that.
This is
A
good?
bit closer. A bit closer.
A bit closer.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
Wow, Live Epically has flowers, has car reservations.
Right. And
You
then
know-
the most basic ones, of course, restaurant reservation as well. Yeah.
Wow. I would totally use that, and I'm sure there are many other people who.
Well,
who
So you
use
you
it.
have to remember that this was back before the startup boom, right? So I did
Nice.
this back in I think late of 2011, right?
Wow.
So I think the tech space, the tech startup space in Indonesia started to boom in 2014, right? Mid
Yeah.
to late 2014. And then so basically I did that before all of these startups appearing. So I wouldn't say we did great. I'll be honest with you. I think we did okay, considering the time and everything. And then, I guess now that I think back on it, um, back then I was like, what, 21, right? 21 years old when I
Mm.
started the company. There's still so many things that I didn't know about business, especially about Indonesia as well, right? Um, I I studied in Singapore and then in the States. So then when I came back, actually a lot of my friends still haven't returned from abroad.
Mm.
So basically, I had to find my own connections here in Indo, and then build my own build my Rolodex, basically the contacts and everything. So um, considering the situation I was put in, we didn't do great, but I think we did great at the time. Yeah.
Well, how did you assess your performance? Why do you say that?
Uh, well, okay. So why I said we did great at the time is because at the end of it I was still able to sell my venture, right? So at least I get an exit, and then at the time it was also a venture backed company, right? So back then it was, I guess, more difficult to raise funds for your company from VCs. So there were certainly plus points that I can give myself, I guess. But I'm also, I guess, someone who criticize myself the hardest sometimes, I guess. Um, and I know, for example, from a product point of view, right? Um, Back then I didn't have much technical knowledge, much technical background, so I'm pretty sure, the product that we built, I haven't learned yet about scalability, for example,
Mm.
how to scale a product from just a few users to hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of users, things like that. So yeah.
And how did you scale it? What
So
was the
I think
journey
there
like?
was just a huge learning curve because when I first started the business, I had no idea what type of programming languages there were.
Hmm.
There's so many, right?
Right.
Um, but back then, basically I just hired a few programmers, right? I gave them the concept. I said, yeah, I want to do this, and this, and then they asked me, okay, pa, okay, sir, what language do you want it to be? And I said, yeah, I want it to be in English, and then it's like, no, 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 what programming language? I was like, oh, I I don't know what type of languages are there. So I had to watch a lot of online videos. So back then, um, Harvard had a no no Stanford had a oh shoot okay Stanford had a
It's okay. Mm.
an online class,
Hmm.
online videos,
Hmm.
right, about programming, CS 101, right?
You
So
took
then
you took CS 101?
so it's not an official class, but then they put out the whole class in YouTube where you
Right.
can watch it. So then I tried to watch all of the videos
And
in CS 101.
you practiced a little bit of
Yeah, so
coding.
so so I practiced a
Yeah.
little bit of coding, and then whenever my programmers are programming, I would sit next to them and then I would try to read the code. So learn a bit of that, and then especially understand more about database and logic, right? So I think for someone like me who technically doesn't have a technical CS background, I think the least you have to understand is from the database side. The logic, the framework of the system, and everything like that. And so I learned a lot from building my first startup. On how to structure a system, the database, the logic, the relational points, and everything like that. Yeah.
I took CS 101 in Stanford. I don't know if it's still the same or not, but it was really helpful for me to understand my family business in tech.
Yeah.
And but could you expand more on the management side of the scaling? How did you lead
Okay.
people? Because you went from like from the starting point
Yeah.
to an exit.
Right.
What was that like as a leader in the company?
Um, I I was young, right? So I was still really young back then, and I uh haven't learned how to actually lead anyone, right? They didn't teach that in business school, in business classes. So, um, and then not only that, I had to come back to Indonesia after leaving it for, I don't know, maybe close to 6, 7 years, because studying abroad. So I had to relearn the cultures, actually the language as well, because when I came back, I can speak bahasa conversationally, but not formally, right? So if you ask me to speak bahasa formally back then, it's very difficult for me to speak it. So so those I guess are the two things that I had to overcome, right? I had to overcome my lack of experience, and then I had to overcome, basically relearning the culture and then the language. So um, there was a huge learning curve for me, but I think it's a good thing that I did that startup, right? Because then I was able to learn so many things. So, for example, uh, I was able to learn how to manage programmers, right? Managing programmers and managing salespeople, for example,
Well,
and then
what's that like?
so it's two different things, right? So
Mm.
managing programmers, managing salespeople, and then, for example, managing accountants, managing marketers are all very different things because they all have different style, and then they all have different moods, I guess, if you could say that. So, for example, um, programmers, most of the programmers that I've met are usually night owls, so
What's that?
they're
They
more
work at
productive,
night?
yeah, at night compared to the daytime, right? Um, so then I had to. So back then I was like, you gotta come in to work on time. You gotta 8:30. But then I start noticing that they I talked to them. I asked them. I reviewed them, and then they said, oh yeah, usually at like 10, 11, 12 p.m. That's when I get my inspiration to code. So then I'm like, okay, and knowing that actually shaped my management style, right? So inside my current family business right now, right? So technically, it's still somewhat of a traditional company, even though we're in the tech space, right? So there is still an office hour, right? You do still need to do clock in, clock out, right? But especially for the people on my team, I give them more flexibility, right? So for example, if they just pull an all nighter to code for something the previous night, right? To catch the due date. I would tell them it's okay. Don't come in at 8:30. Just come in at like what 9:30, 10. Take it easy because for me at the end of the day, as long as the work is done, that's what matters, right? Not the clock in clock out thing. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your the size on your startups and the family business. I guess that's would be an interesting uh, switch of topic into. Um, so now you are working within your family business, and you are also leading a business within the family
Mm.
business
Mm.
itself. Could you tell us what that business is that
Mm.
you are directly involved with?
Okay. So my family business is mainly in enterprise technology, right? So we build fiber optics, we build data centers, all of the digital infrastructure related businesses. But then, we also have a special division that deals with mm, more towards applications, right? So application solutions, so more on softwares than the infrastructure and hardware. So I mainly am responsible for that whole application business, right? So then the application business, we we have different solutions, right? We have a CRM solution, we have a GPS tracking solution, an e-learning solution, a web builder, just different products that we built and manage, and then we sell to our customers, basically.
Wow,
Yeah,
nice. Let me check on my equipment. It's
sure.
all good. Alright, so everything's good. Okay. Usually in family businesses, there are a very strong leader
Mm.
figure. Um, who is the leader in your family business? Is it a professional or is it still within the family?
Mm.
What is the organizational
So
structure of?
we have a professional managing director, right? So the managing director is not a family. We hire a professional, but you know, the my dad's the chairman, right? And then so our family business is not, it's we don't involve the cousins, right? So my cousins are not inside the family business. So it's strictly just my parents and me and siblings, right? So it's not one of those, oh, I have cousin and then they join to the family business. So technically the managing director is a professional. My dad's the chairman, and then basically I manage different things. Yeah.
Wow. And can you tell us the history behind the group? How did it become to where it is right now? And
Um. So
what businesses are you guys currently
sure.
in?
So my dad started it back in '84, right? So back in 1984, um, the company he built became like the first IBM distributor in Indonesia, right? And Apple as well, I think, back then, um, pre before Steve Jobs came back into the company. So yeah, so we distributed IBM and Apple. So we were basically in the business of moving boxes, just selling computers, right? And then as time goes by, the margins become smaller and smaller, right? From what I heard, back then, the customers, they didn't want to pay tax, for example, like VAT, right? But because we were dealing with IBM, a US based company, we had to pay tax, right? So then, actually, there was a point where we actually, on certain cases, we have to pay to serve our customers, right? Because they don't want to pay tax, but we had to. So then, we need to top up, basically. So then, in '96, we became one of the first ISPs in Indonesia, so in an internet service provider. So then,
Hmm.
um, we were, I guess, you could say, one of the founding members of the association, the ABGI,
Upji.
Asosiasi the Internet Service Provider Association, right? So since '96, we are in the business of network and infrastructure. Um, and then you know moving forward to like 2003, the company had basically a GPS tracking system. And then in 2009 we started getting into natural resources, so coal mining, right? And then 2013, I think, we invested uh, in a, I guess, a pharmaceutical company, so that produces diabetic medicine, herbal diabetic medicine. And then I joined the company in 2014 officially, like full time. After I sold the startup, joined the family business, and basically since 2014, one of the things that I wanted to push for, and for the company to do, is to um, move towards the application space, right? The enterprise application space, and that's what we've been doing ever since. So, like I mentioned previously, just different applications from the education sector, right, to the FMCG distribution, insurance, healthcare sector. So just different industries that we try to serve them different solutions to using different products. Yeah,
Right. So because I heard applications margins are
it's much
bigger,
higher,
much higher than
right? It's
distribution of hardware. and
Right,
so
it's
forth.
it's
Is that
much
true?
higher, right? So typically your gross margins can be, 80, maybe sometimes 90% gross, right?
Wow.
Um, because it's you're playing the scalability business, right? So the more customers you have, theoretically, the lower your cost of goods should be, right? Because for example, if I add one customer, that doesn't mean I'm adding one server,
Mm.
right? So the more customers I have, the more economies of scale I have. So that's why being in a SaaS space, software as a service
Mm.
space, um, we're able to enjoy like greater margins, basically.
Would you be leading the applications business if you did not have such a interesting experience before, or would that be something that the business would still go no
Mm.
matter what?
So so when I did my startup, there was mainly a B2B2C business, right? So yes, we had a business that caters to the restaurant, which is B2B, but then another side of the business is also catering to the general public, right? B2C. Um, and from then I started to realize one thing, which is everyone have their, I guess, specialty. Um, I soon figure out that actually one of my specialties is to deal with corporates, right? To deal with other businesses, and then serve the businesses, right? So that's why right now, for example, if I talk to my friends, and then they ask me for advice, and it's B2B related, I would be able to give my full advice, right? But if it's more, for example, like e-commerce, digital marketing, things like that, yeah, I've had some experience. Yes, I know it. Yes, I've learned it, but it's not as extensive as a B2B play. Um, and that previous startup, I guess, kind of shaped the way I look at the tech space, especially in Indonesia. I know everyone is, so for example, back in 2015,
Mm.
everyone is raving about e-commerce,
Mm.
right? E-commerce, e-commerce, e-commerce. And then 16, it's all about you know Gojek, 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 right? Well, Gojek, obviously, they're doing great, right? But then 2017, it's all about um, fintech, 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 you know and then now it's all moving towards health tech, health tech, health tech, and these are all B2C related businesses, right? um I don't know, I guess, in my opinion, part of the problem that I've experienced here in the tech space, I guess, and it's not just in Indonesia, it's like everywhere in the world, especially Silicon Valley, right? Is that businesses want to grow, 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 grow with no clear path to profitability, right? Um, and actually, I just had a meeting this morning with a partner, and we kind of discussed this. And then, we basically came to a conclusion that, a tech business at the end of the day is still a business, right? And in business school, they would teach you that, the number one purpose of a business is to give profit basically to its shareholders or stakeholders, I guess, right? Um, so with that, I guess, mindset created, I decided my next move after that startup was to build a B2B product related business. So for example, one of the first products that I built is the CRM product, right? It's called Sales One CRM. um, from day one, it's been built in a way that it's profitable, right? Yes, the growth, of course, is not, linear. Like, it's not like, crazy fast high as you would see, for example, in the e-commerce space or the fintech space, right? But it's growing steadily with how do you say it, with a healthy, profitable margins company. And and as I said earlier, everyone is different, but for me, that's how I want to build a company, right? It's you build the building blocks, and then build a healthy company. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it's great that someone is focusing on B2B, and you're right. There's not a lot of disruption, at least in the media, about the industry side,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
a lot of process is in the
Yeah.
consumer side.
Yeah. I mean, you're in the B2B space as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you think about it?
I think you're right. There's not a lot of, I think, innovation in the B2B side, because companies are focusing on the bottom line,
Mm.
and it might not go in hand with innovation.
Mm.
But I feel like that's where the opportunities
Mm.
are.
Mm.
And I think if one is in a company that is specialized in that,
Mm.
they should be thankful, because like the customers are already there. We can experiment new products
Right.
with
Right.
them,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so forth.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
How do you maintain a good relationships to your clients? What how do you do it?
Mm. I try to remember that they are humans as well, right? So sometimes I guess in sales, you can tend to see people as targets, just another target to close, just another target uh, to try to close this deal, right? So for me, what I mean by remember that they're humans is to actually try to build a genuine connection, a genuine relationship with them as friends, right? So, for example, I have a customer that's been with me for, I don't know, 3 to 4 years from the beginnings of the CRM product, right? Until now. And we did one of our first case studies on the impact of using our CRM platform on her company, is with this company. And what we found is, she was very happy with it. The company was very happy with it. They experienced, I don't know, a 30% increase in their profitability.
Wow.
What, a 42% increase in their productivity for their
Wow.
salespeople. So obviously the product works, and that's why she likes it, right? But then
Right.
besides that, I actually had to spend time as well, to chat with her, to ask her, hey, what are the problems that you're facing with the company, how I can help. And it's not always about the money, right? So whenever possible, if she needs help on, for example, she needs a connection to somewhere, right? If I have that connection, I'll give it to her. It's no business involved, right? um, and I think for me that's a very important part of maintaining your clients, um, just to actually build a genuine connection with them. Talk with them, have lunch with them, have coffee with them, and not always have an angle on when you're meeting them. I guess that's how I try to keep a good relationship.
Wow. Wow. People should learn from you, because in B2B relationships are very important,
Mm.
right? In the sales
Yeah.
cycle.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It is. It is. Yeah.
I want to pivot into the family in the family business. What have you learned from your family?
What have I learned from the family? So I've learned a lot from my mom and dad. Right? They've been working much longer than I have. They've been in the industry much longer than I have, and they've seen, um, and I think this is very important. They've experienced different economic cycles, which is something that I think you and I and our peers haven't really experienced it,
Sure.
right? Um, my parents, your parents, they've experienced different economic cycles, the booms, and then also the slowdowns of the economies. So business wise, I've learned a lot from my parents, right? For example, how to negotiate, how to deal with clients, how to support the clients, things like that. But I guess on a more, how do you call it? On a more principle level, one of the thing that I learned um, from my dad is that uh, you should never give up, right? My dad's a very big fighter. He's someone who would never give up, right? And he's still active in the business, right? So then I would um, sometimes go to meetings with him, and I would see that he is a very enthusiastic person, and as with business, sometimes things go your way, sometimes things doesn't go your way, right? That's just the fact of life. um, but what I've learned from him is that when things didn't go his way, you know usually he would say, it's okay, let's just pray, because everything's from God anyway. um, God gives, God takes away, right? So we as people, our responsibility is just to try our hardest, and just leave the rest to God, right? So and I think that's a very important principle lesson for me, uh, to learn as I continue in my career. Yeah.
Where do you think you guys got the passion from? The zeal, the entrepreneurial drive.
My dad or me?
Both of
So
you.
my dad. So I think I got it from my dad, right?
Hmm.
My dad. I don't know where he got it from actually. From his stories, right? Ever since he was young, he's always tried to sell different things as well, and then he would help my grandpa, with his business as well. He's actually only one of two sons in a 12 family sibling.
Oh wow.
So my dad had 12 siblings, and nine of them are women.
Okay.
So so then he's the one who helped a lot with the business. So I think, um, I'm pretty sure that's where he got it. He didn't actually major in business. I think he majored in initially he was majoring in nuclear engineering or something like that, and then
Oh,
he changed to business. For me, I think I got that entrepreneurial drive spirit from him, right? I remember back in high school in Singapore, our school campus was located like right on Orchard Road, like central of Singapore. But then, obviously, you're not allowed to go outside the school, during school times. And then the canteen food that, they sell, school canteens aren't exactly known for great food. Um, so then, I remember one time I decided to start selling McDonald's to my friends, especially to the expats, right? To the Caucasians
in the school.
in the school, right? So then lunchtime's at 12. I still have a class before it, right? So at 11:40, usually I would excuse myself to go to the bathroom. I would call McDonald's, oh hey, can I order, cheeseburger, French fries, whatever, and can you please deliver it to my school, right? So then I would pick up the food. So back then, a normal cheeseburger, right? Buns, patty, cheese, right? The simple one.
Hmm.
It would cost, I think, $1, right? I would sell it for like $5, $6. you know,
Amazing.
yeah. Um,
Was there a drive-through?
yeah. So that's my first business lesson
Amazing.
in marking up your prices. In getting margins. The second thing that I learned from my first business, that was my first business, is about commissions. So then I started asking, one or two of my friends who know more, expat kids,
Uh huh.
and then to buy from me, right? So then, for I think I sold for $5. I would give them $1 for each burger, right? So then they helped
Wow,
me.
you had a sales force since you were young.
Yes. So that's my second lesson. There's a third lesson. I learned the lesson
What
about
is it?
um, government intervention, right? So then, not long afterwards, a few of the teachers found out, and then they said you can't sell in school, right? So
No.
that's my third lesson in government intervention. So once the lawmakers intervene, then I guess there's not much that you can do.
What an
Yeah.
amazing story. Yes, I remember you were saying about that, and that's such a cool story for us to hear. Um,
Yeah.
mm, has that been has your um, entrepreneurial journey, has it been all a smooth sail,
Of course
or
not.
was there points
Of
where
course
you
not.
learned a lot and
Yeah,
you had to dig deep?
back, for example, I remember there was a time during the Live Epically days, right, where I just didn't want to get out of bed, right, because I was dreading the day, right, because it's selling is not easy, right, and for example, so I was selling the system to restaurants, right, so I received like so many rejections from the restaurants, from the people and from everything. So um, so it was very difficult for me to um, at the time to deal with that because you know um, so many people rejected to use the system, right? But there would be actually some who, for no reason, who would um, basically just yell and then say call you names, things like that. You know, and that's when I guess I had to dig deep, right? But even until now, even the family business, of course, there are moments where for example, you've made an investment, right? And then you're still waiting on whether that investment would bring you a return or not, right? So I don't think an entrepreneur's journey is ever smooth.
Hmm.
I think if anyone said that they are lying. I'm pretty sure every entrepreneur, every great entrepreneur, that the names we all know, they would say that they've had their ups and downs. Yeah,
And Joseph Simbar says that. So
yeah. Well, hopefully, right? No, and I think it's important to have your down moments, right? Because that's those are the moments where you will learn your lessons, right? Usually, when you're on top, you won't learn anything, right? If anything, maybe you'll be obnoxious, you'll be arrogant, right? But then, when you're in the down times, that's where you usually can learn your lessons, right? So, and I think it's very important to to have the down moments so that you can learn your lessons. Yeah.
you seem to have a very strong principle. Do you have a faith, certain faith that you
Right.
practice,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of
what
course. So I'm a
what
Christian,
keeps you going?
right? So I'm a Christian. Have been since I was a baby. Um, and my faith combined, I guess, with my parents' teaching, um, made me a person with strong convictions, strong beliefs. Um, and I guess that's and part of what I want to do is to translate that faith, that belief, into my everyday life, right? So, for example, I lead a church small group, right? Um, with other people, and currently we're talking about um, we're discussing a book that's talking about work, right? And the book, says something that's very interesting. It's called the book's called Every Good Endeavor by Timothy Keller, and the
Thanks.
book says something interesting that as a Christian, no matter how active you are at church, the fact is you will still spend maybe 80 to 90% of your life at work, not at church, right? So it is very important for you to live your faith at work and not just at church, right? And when I read that, I was like, it's true. I'm quite active at church, but then at the end of the day, I'm still, you know, most of my time are spent in the office, right, at work, and that's and then basically, the gist of the book is that, you know, what is the best way as a Christian how should a Christian work, right? What's the best way for a Christian to work? And then he gave an example. For example, if you're a pilot, what's the best way for you as a Christian pilot to do your job? What do you think?
Drive it as safely as possible. Maybe pray before the flight and no
Right? So
idea.
so I mean, you wouldn't, as a pilot, for example, you wouldn't, use your comment like, okay, let's all pray. I don't think you can do that
Yeah,
anyways, right?
no.
You can't greet the passengers coming in, hey, God bless you. I don't think so
Yeah,
as well,
no.
right? So you're exactly right. The best way as a Christian pilot to be a pilot is to fly the plane properly, and then to land it properly, and then to make sure that the plane is usable again for the next flight, right? And for me, that's very interesting, right? So it's saying the best way for a Christian to work is just to do your work well,
Mm.
to do your vocation well, right? Um, some people think like, oh, I have to do this, you have to do that. No, it's actually very simple. The best way for you to do your job as a Christian is just to do it well. So that's I guess what I'm trying to do.
Right, right.
Yeah.
The managing director echoes the belief that you believe, where when we do well, the company will do well.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah, right. I was wondering whether certain principles in your company are formally assigned, like in a statement or in a charter. Do you guys do that?
Yeah, that's I guess one of our negatives. We don't actually have one of those um, statements, things like that. I know that's actually in my to-do list to actually formulate into a sentence, what our uh, mission is. But um, especially in sales, right? We have a very strict rule. Um, no, um, no bribery, for example, right? So, and we put a very strict rule on that, and we have lost on deals because of that rule. So, um, it's it's not a secret, right? That in business, anywhere in the world, there would be different arrangements for transactions and things like that, you know.
Sure.
Um, but that's just one of the things that we decided as a company through our faith that we don't want to do that, and we have lost on deals from not doing that. So and for us, well, it's fine. Yeah.
That's beautiful. My company also does that, and we don't tolerate that kind of things. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's just a certain way to play the game.
Right.
Like in football, you sometimes pass the ball in a certain way, and with that company policy, you just
Right.
play
Right.
the game
That that's
in
that's 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 a good way to put it.
in,
Yeah.
in a different way. Do you see yourself continuing that policy when the company is succeeded into
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
your hands?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I think so. Um, I think so. I think one of the challenge for and I don't know about believers of other faith, but I can say of Christianity is that I think it's one of the main struggles is to actually translate your faith that may be present intellectually to be translated into a livable action.
Wow.
So I think a lot of Christians know, for example, you shall not cheat. You know, but you know, if you don't cheat, then you can't win. That's an argument they can make, right? So I think,
Yeah.
um, especially for the past 1 to 2 years, right? Personally, what I've been struggling to really do is to translate all of this intellectual faith, doctrinal faith, understandings that I have of my religion into livable actions, right? So, for example, in Christianity, for example, and I'm sure you know this, um, in a sermon they always say, trust in the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Trust in the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that actually mean,
Right.
right? What does
What
that
does that
actually
mean?
mean?
Right.
Trust in the Lord, right? If you are in a formal tender process for a project, for example, what does it mean to actually trust in the Lord, right? So those I guess are the things that um, especially this past 2 years, I'm trying to really hone in and try to ask myself those questions. Trust in the Lord. Okay, what does that look like? Do not be anxious. Okay, what does that look like? So yeah,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all learning. Those are great questions. Um, you obviously share your learnings to other people. You are mentoring kids in church and other organizations. Tell us what you do to teach.
Mm. So yeah, I mentor. I used to be a mentor at my church for the teens. I also mentor and startups, right? So I mentor startups. I mentor entrepreneurs as well. So for example, a couple of months ago, I was invited by University of Indonesia. They had like an event. It's called Studentpreneur, right? They're students who wants to be an entrepreneur, and then I was invited to be a mentor for them. Um, so obviously the things that I talk about, I guess, are slightly different, at church and at work, right? Uh, if it's for work, then it's mainly mentoring business related things, right? If it's, excuse me, for the teens, it's mainly faith related things. Um, as I mentioned earlier, I'm also leading a small group, like a cell group, and the people inside the cell group is around our age, right? So I don't mentor them because we're all like similar age, right? But I guess I'm the leader of that group. So then
Mm.
with that group we are able to talk more diverse things. So we're able to talk about our faith, discuss about the faith related things, but then we're at times we're also able to talk about our work, our business, our struggles at work, our struggles at business as well. So yeah.
Has there been a time in those business conferences or events where you get to share your faith?
Unfortunately, I guess not directly,
Hmm.
not directly, right? Um, which is, now that you mention it, that's a very interesting thing, right? Maybe that's something that I should reflect upon. Um, no, no, not on those business conferences. I think so. For example, the event with UI, University of Indonesia, right? Uh, Almost all of the attendees are of different faith than mine, right?
I see.
So I don't, and I guess to a certain extent, I don't necessarily think that sharing my faith has to be like direct evangelization, right?
Yeah.
Um, but so I guess if you're talking about direct evangelization, then no. Um, but I'd like to think that it should all goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
My work reputation and my faith should goes hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
So I guess my hope is that when people see me, they can see that, oh, I'm a Christian, and I'm a Christian businessman, right? So just one or the others. I try not to separate the two. Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Mm.
Hey, you are almost soon to be a family man.
Mm.
Um, how's that journey been like for you? Like,
Uh, Anxious. uh, so yeah.
so your
Yeah.
wife is, if you may share, is 8 months
Yep,
pregnant.
yep, yep, yep. So we're expecting next month, anytime soon. So it's, I guess it hasn't hit me fully yet that I'm actually going to be a dad. Um, but it's awesome, right? It's when I can feel my baby kicking, right? Um, it's a great feeling, right? um when I talk to her, it's a her, right? And when I talk to her and then she would move, it's it's a wonderful feeling. I guess it's a feeling that I've never felt before, that, oh, hey, this is your child, and so yeah, I think it's anxious. I'm feeling anxious. But I'm also very excited to actually meet my baby in person. Yeah.
That's awesome.
When's yours? Huh? What's your timeline here?
Working on it.
Yeah.
Working on it. But yeah, you never know God's timing. And
Yeah. Because we
uh,
didn't plan to have a baby this soon, actually.
oh yeah,
Yeah, we didn't plan it. Um, all of a sudden, like, my wife told me, "Oh, I'm pregnant." I was like, "Oh, okay," but we were careful. But
all in good days.
yeah, yeah.
What would you like to leave as a legacy, Joseph?
What do I like to leave as a legacy?
Maybe looking at the perspective from a father or friend or business person.
I I would like for people to see that I am I am a business person who is a Christian, and they don't have to separate the two, right? So
Oh,
I want, I guess, later my kids to be able to, one day when they're adults, to be able to say that, oh yeah, my dad is a businessman, you know,
mm-hmm.
but he's also a Christian, and there's no difference between the two. Um, and I guess that's what I want, right? I want people to be impacted, people to want to do that as well, right? Not have to separate business life and Christian life. I guess that's that's the one for me. Yeah.
That's amazing. Where can people find you and your projects?
Oh, um,
Like,
I guess you
what
could.
are they and where to find
Okay,
you? Mm.
socials. Instagram. Um, so I'm my wife would say I'm too active on Instagram. So you could follow me. Actually, I don't remember my ID on Instagram. I think it's, yeah. So please follow me on JLS 2890. JLS,
JLS290.
yeah, JLS 2890. Um, yeah. So that's usually where I just post random stuff of my life, and then hopefully and then also business related things as well, from there. I'm also on Twitter. I guess I'm trying to be more active on Twitter. Joseph Simbar, that's my handle. So yeah, that's where I'm most active.
And can people find your suits? Where can people find if they want to make cool suits? Because Joseph makes really awesome suits. My
All right,
cousin
yeah, that's
loves it.
that's that's my side business as well. You can follow our Instagram, one dapper lane, one dapper lane. So yeah, you can follow us, or you can just go to my Instagram profile, search Joseph Simbar, and then you'll find me, and then just send me a message. Yeah, I'd love to chat with people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Joseph, I learned a lot from you. It's been an
Hey,
awesome
likewise, man.
podcast.
Yeah.
I hope that we can continue to be friends
Of
for
course,
life.
yeah, man.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you again for having me. Great talking to you. Yeah.
Pleasure.